participating and supporting Iraqi heritage event. I would like to give you an idea about what you can expect and what we hope to achieve from this event. I know and you know Iraq has very long history and archaeological sites, and Iraq has 2 great rivers, and we have 4 seasons. We have different culture, and we have different religion, Christian and Muslims. We have Sunni and Shia, Kurdish and Arabic. Everything is Iraq is separate and different, even though that. In addition to that, we have Samarra, Ur, Zakura, Mesopotamia, and we have Erbil city. What we targeting today, we would like to put some highlights on our heritage, just tiny bit highlights. We will start our program, and before we will start in our program, I would like to ask you to stand for the international anthem of Iraq. And please keep standing for extra one moment for Iraqi victims as silent moment and for victims in anywhere in the world. So please, if you can. Standing for silent movement for victims, Iraqi victims, and victims for anywhere in the world. Al-Fatiha. We will start our have a seat, please. We will start our program with a movie about Iraqi heritage. That movie can give us kind of a brief description about Iraqi heritage. So enjoy 9 minutes that movie.
Everyone for coming together today to celebrate what we're doing at Newcastle University with our Iraqi students, and it's a great honour on behalf of the Vice-Chancellor to welcome Dr. Hassan Al-Alaq to Newcastle University. It's a real privilege to have you here today to talk about what we're doing at the university. I want to congratulate you on your recent appointment as Councillor Attaché, and thank you very much for spending time and coming up to Newcastle to spend time with us this morning.
Thank you.
2 years ago I met Professor Mosa Al-Fisawi, and we had a celebration of Iraqi culture and Iraqi students and activities that are taking place in the university. And so it's a great privilege to be here again to welcome everyone to the university and to express our delight at having such a rich group of students attending courses at Newcastle. We do have a very long tradition of having Iraqi students in the university. We really do believe that having such a rich group of people from around the world, including Iraqi students, is a fundamentally important aspect of being a modern university. Internationalization is really very, very important to us at the university and is threaded throughout many things that we do as a university. It's incredibly important that everyone realizes that British universities, and Newcastle University in particular, are very welcoming of international staff, international students from around the world. And particularly in the times that we live in, it's important that that's clearer than ever, and we redouble our efforts to make it clear to our staff and students and to the wider community that we see ourselves as an international university that is very welcoming to a range of cultures and nationalities to come to the UK, or to come to London or Newcastle or Singapore or Malaysia, where we have our 4 Newcastle University campuses. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about Newcastle University and just update you on what we've been doing recently. The first thing to say is that Newcastle University has set out to be a world-class civic university. And this means we're not just interested in being excellent in teaching and research. We want to know how our teaching and research makes a difference to people in society with the real challenges that we face around the world. So we want to be a world-class civic university, and that means we want to not just be very good at research and teaching, but make sure it makes a difference to people. Because we face so many challenges around the world in terms of how to feed, power, keep healthy society. How do we do that effectively? So the university is very strong. We're very proud. There's a number of pieces of information we could give you. Some of the bits I'm very proud of is that we have one of the highest percentages of international staff at our university. 27% of the staff in Newcastle University are international. We have a large number of international students. Of our total population of almost 23,500 students. We're very highly ranked in the United Kingdom and within the top 200 universities internationally, and we're in the top 1% of universities around the world. And we work in this wonderful city. We actually have 4 campuses though: London, Singapore, Malaysia and Newcastle. And we have our main campus in this wonderful city of Newcastle, which has a long history that is very much tied into the history of the university and where we originated. So Newcastle, of course, is has been an industrial region with mining and shipbuilding and engineering and agriculture, and that's where the university started in the 1800s, around those disciplines. So we have 3 challenges that we have set ourselves, and if you go to the next slide, those 3 challenges is that we want to work on ageing. We want to not just see people live longer, but we want to work out how they can live longer and better, have a high quality of life in an ageing population that we see in the UK and we see elsewhere in the world. We're also working on social renewal. How can we cope with the huge changes that take place in society, which create so much upheaval, create movements in people and migration? How can we support society through significant transformational changes that take place? And the third challenge is in sustainability. The world population is around 7 billion people at the moment. It will grow to probably 9 billion people in the next couple of decades. How can we feed, nourish, provide energy for that growing global population without damaging the planet in a way that we cannot, that is permanent? So how can we provide food, clean water, energy in a sustainable way? And that's what the third mission, the third theme is about, around sustainability. So we're very honoured to have a number of key academics and a strong history in this area of Iraqi cultural heritage. Firstly, Peter Stone, who's the gentleman at the bottom here, who is the UNESCO Chair in Cultural Property. He's very interested in preserving cultural property and cultural heritage at times of conflict, when it often gets destroyed. We also are home to the Gertrude Bell Archive. We've been celebrating the work of Gertrude Bell over the last 12 months. And we work in the School of Arts and Culture, on Iraqi cultural heritage. On internationalisation, we've got a very strong new strategy for internationalisation. And I've been the Pro-Vice Chancellor for internationalisation for the last 2 years. And I've convinced that one of the things we have to do is to make internationalisation as simple as it can be. So our strategy has 3 things in it only. The first is that we should develop an international presence and impact. Researchers and teachers, students, academics should be striving to make sure that their research goes beyond national boundaries. It generally does, but we should always strive to do that, to make sure it has an international impact. And that's the first objective in our strategy. I'll test you on this at the end, so it's a very easy strategy. The second objective is to provide an international experience. So if you're studying in Singapore or London or the city of Newcastle or Malaysia, you should have access to an international experience. And international experience is about having a rich community of staff and students that are international. We're attracting international staff and students to the university. But it's also about making sure our students, wherever possible, can travel abroad to do part of their study. And research has been done that shows that students that have been mobile tend to be stronger students. They tend to get better degree results, they tend to be more employable, they tend to have higher starting salaries. So we want to make sure we provide an international experience. Students can travel, our staff can travel, we invite staff to come and work here, and that we attract students from around the world and staff as well. We have students from 130 countries around the world and staff from around 80 countries around the world, and we're very proud of that, and we must keep going on striving to continue to invite those people to work here or in the other 3 campuses that we have. The last thing on this list, in terms of the third thing we want to do, is we want to make sure that wherever you are in the world, wherever you're studying, wherever you're researching, you have access to the same information, you can get support, there's funds available, we have a clear structure for internationalisation. The world is a very, very complicated place, and I'm adamant we should have a clear and simple structure that allows everyone to understand what we're doing. So for all of our partners, we want to have leads that are taking forward the key partnerships. We want that all to be very clear. So if you go to our web pages, you'll now see that all of our partnerships are there. You can click on a map and go to any part of the world and find out where we are working and what we're doing. We're really pleased that we've had a number of students coming to the university from Iraq over the last few years. It's grown tremendously. You can see in that table there taking us up to 2014, 2015. And we'd like to continue to do that because every student that comes to this university is enriching the experience that we all get. They are enriching the experience, they are breaking down cultural barriers, they are helping us to understand different cultures, and this is so important, particularly in the times that we live in today. So it's a real pleasure to welcome the vast number of students that we get, that we receive from Iraq. So I just wanted to finish by, again, saying what a delight it is to welcome you, Dr. Hassan Al-Alaq, to the university, and to welcome everyone here today for this event. It's a real pleasure to have the honour of welcoming you here, and it's a real pleasure to see that we still are bringing in Iraqi students into our university, and I just want to do everything I can to make sure that that continues in the future. Thank you very much indeed.
Speaker from Manchester University, Dr. Jane Moon. Dr. Jane Moon is a research fellow in archaeological department at University of Manchester, and she's currently doing archaeological in several archaeological sites in Iraq, in south of Iraq, Nasiriyah, Basra, and marshlands. And she is co-director of Ur archaeological project. So welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for welcoming me here. It is my first time in Newcastle University. It's not my first time in Newcastle because, in fact, I was born here. My father was a student here. In fact, he was a student trying to take his finals when I was born. So I actually feel much more welcome today than I did on that day. So thank you very much for having me here. I am, as our good friend said, an archaeologist. I'm an honorary research fellow with the University of Manchester, and I'm currently working with 2 co-directors My husband and co-director Dr. Robert Killick is here, and with Professor Stuart Campbell from Manchester. We are working on an archaeological project actually excavating in Iraq. So I could tell you many, many things about Iraqi heritage. You know much more than me, of course. But today I'm just going to concentrate on a small piece. I could start... Is this going to...
This mic.
Oh, that's the mic. Sorry, I wanted the pointer. I can't
What are you? Just look at the other one.
Is he going to climb up and point? Okay, next slide then, please. Thank you. I could start this lecture. There's so much bad news about Iraqi heritage. I could start with a picture of those Daesh animals destroying Mosul or Hatra. I'm sorry for saying animals, that's not fair to animals. Whatever. Anyway, I am not starting with that. You have the pictures in your head. I'm going to start with some good news, which I'm sure you've already heard, which is that the Ahwa and the ancient cities of Ur, Eridu and Waka are now World Heritage Sites. I'm sorry I was a little late thanks to your Newcastle traffic, so perhaps you've already celebrated this, but celebrate it every day, please. Now, I could show you beautiful pictures of the marshes, but there are many on the internet, and you can look at them yourself. This one I like, because that is Saddam's great road through the marshes. After he drained the marshes, destroyed the reeds, drove the animals and peoples away, as you know, he built a great road, so the marsh could never come back. So the marsh is back, the animals are back, the people are back, and the road, well, you can just see it. It's floating. And it's a good place to have a picnic, which is the best thing you should do with that road. So excuse me for that, but we enjoyed that picnic. Could I have the next one, please? And could you click again? And again? And again. Sorry, I thought I'd be doing this myself. I'm giving the gentleman... No, it's okay. I'll just give you some hard work. Okay. I could show you, of course, many pictures of Iraq's beautiful heritage, but again, you can find those for yourself. But I'll just pause with this one for the moment. This is the Great Ziggurat at Ur, of course. Popular with local tourists. There's some ladies going up the steps. I'm glad I don't go up the steps in an abaya because it's really quite tricky, but they're better at it than I am. We have the privilege of living at Ur during our work. We've been working since 2013 near to Ur, not at Ur, but near to Ur. But we live there, so we wake up to this site every morning, which is fantastic. So briefly, I'm going to explain why we're trying to do this, what exactly we're trying to achieve, and where you come in, because everybody comes in somewhere. Could I have the next one? Thanks. I probably need to explain, if you will excuse me for 2 minutes, I need to talk a little bit about myself, just very briefly. I first went to Iraq in 1976. I just graduated. I already had a passion for Iraq's heritage, ancient heritage. Falling in love with modern Iraq took me a little longer, possibly because nobody met me at the airport, and that was not a good experience. But since then, it's been getting better and better. And I was there for about 10 years. I went for 3 months, but I stayed 10 years. I left in 1986, but in 2012, with my 2 partners, I tried to go back. We decided this would be a good time to go back, after all the trouble there had been. And God knows there's been even more since then, unfortunately. We wanted to try and use our experience, because we are becoming old, before we have to stop work, to encourage new students of every nationality and to try to reconnect Iraqi scholars with the international community, because they've been cut off. I hope Newcastle University is doing this for you, but this was the small thing we wanted to do for you. I will start. I'm not going to tell you all about Iraqi history. I hope you know most of it. I'll just pause very briefly with the Sumerians, who of course were the first people to invent writing, to learn to live in cities, and as you know, they were in southern Iraq. and in the great city of Ur in the 1920s and 30s. These are just some small examples of the beautiful things found there. I'm not going to show any more pretty objects, so please enjoy them while you can. Some of these are in the Iraqi Museum, and some are in the British Museum, and some are in Pennsylvania. But again, you can find pictures on the internet for all these things. At the top, that's okay. At the top in the middle is a gold helmet, fantastic workmanship. I don't know if you find these things beautiful, but they're certainly very clever. A dagger with lapis and gold. These people traded all over the world to get the things they wanted. An ornamental bull's head off a lyre, oud, I think oud, yes. And this, we don't know what this was, but it shows pictures of the army receiving tribute. Marvellous things for 2300 BC, don't you think? The Sumerians were very clever, they weren't always very nice, so they're exactly like all people at all times in all countries. The next one, please. Ur, I'm using Ur as one example. Ur is one of the many major cities which was excavated some time ago, in the 1920s and 1930s. In the traditional way of that time, an expedition from the west went to Iraq, used some Iraqi workmen to use the shovels, and then they came away. I think a lot of people believe that these international expeditions stole all the artifacts. That's not quite the way it was. To begin with, they took the artifacts away because really there was nowhere to leave them and nobody who wanted them. During this excavation, the first antiquities law was made by Gertrude Bell, who you all know because her archive is here. And part of the law was that everything unique must stay in Iraq, everything that was duplicated, if there were many things the same, half in Iraq and half the excavators could take. This happened halfway through Leonard Woolley's excavations. He was very angry with Gertrude Bell. He thought she would give him special conditions because they were both British, but she didn't, and he was furious. So the things were halved. The law has changed since. Now everything stays in Iraq. Everything we excavate stays in Iraq, and that is the law now. And I don't think anyone would want a different law. That's Sir Leonard Woolley on the right. There on the left is his deputy, Max Mallowan, and in the middle is Max's wife, Agatha Christie, the famous novelist. We tried, out of respect, just for a laugh, to recreate the photograph. So there we have Stuart Campbell on the right, Robert Killick on the left, and I was the only person who could be Agatha, so I'm in the middle. The only thing we have in common, I hope, with them is that the two on the left are married to each other. But otherwise, we try to do things in a very different way. Leonard Woolley was a good excavator. He made good records for the time. He was a hero in his way. Since then, there have been many other very good archaeologists, and many of them Iraqi. I could list them all, but I haven't got time. Please, could I have the next one? So, when we came back in 2013, our aim was, as I say, to try and rebuild Iraqi scholarship. Not single-handedly, I don't want to be too proud, just to help in some small way. I could show you many pictures of us receiving awards, being photographed, getting presents in universities, but this is my favourite photograph of my return to Iraq. It's just some people having breakfast. We're having breakfast on the site. The Iraqi archaeologists, the British archaeologists, were all sitting on the floor and eating together. Now, when I came back in 2013, many things had changed. Many things had changed. Many things had not. But one thing that had changed was Saddam was gone. And this would never have happened in Saddam's time. I'm not going to mention politics again, this is the only time. But this, for me, was a great triumph. We could sit and eat together. Before, that would never have happened. The workmen would have been afraid to be seen near us or to be seen speaking to us, which is one excuse for not, I'm sorry, addressing you in Arabic. I never really got the chance to learn Arabic properly because it was too dangerous to be heard speaking Arabic, and it was too dangerous for the people I was speaking to be speaking to me. But the language problem is therefore one of the greatest difficulties we have. The scholars before were all fluent in either English or German or French, sometimes all of those. Now they struggle, just to communicate. They struggle with English, I struggle with Arabi, Mu Arabi, Iraqi. But between us, you know, patience will go a long way. Could I have the next one, please? Okay, we're working in the south of Iraq. I know you're probably from everywhere. In my time in Iraq, I've worked in near Diwaniyah at a Sumerian site called Tel Abu al-Salabih. I worked in the east, in the Jebel Hamreen between Jalala and Khanaqin, and in the west on the island of Arna, near to Rawa, and then finally in Eski Mosul, near to Wana, not far from Duhok. I don't claim to know Iraq, but I have been to most parts of it, and I think you're from all different parts too. So I want to be as inclusive as possible, but we did choose to work in the south, and really that is the reason. We could have worked in Kurdistan, which of course is beautiful and has much archaeology, but many people are already helping in Kurdistan, and nobody, almost nobody, is working in the south. I may be a little out of date, there may be less than 30, because some people are afraid to go even to Kurdistan, and there are 1 or 2 more projects trying to come to the south, but essentially there are only 2 of us who have been there every year since the troops left in 2012. Next one, please. That is the Iraq you know. Next one, please. That is Iraq. I'm taking you back now to 1500 BC, 1500 BC, round and about. This is not the time of the Sumerians. We fast forward 1,000 years from the Sumerians, and we come to the time of the Babylonians. Now, I expect you know this. Sumerian is a language completely alone. It has no relations. The Sumerians ceased to exist as a culture round about 3000 BC. The people, of course, were still there, and Sumerian was still used as a sort of official language sometimes, a religious language. But the people by then spoke a different language. They spoke Akkadian, of which Babylonian is a dialect, and ancient Assyrian is a dialect, and that is related to modern Arabic, to Hebrew, and to Aramaic, the language of the Assyrian peoples of Iraq and others. So we're now in the time of the Babylonians. The most famous Babylonian, I think, Old Babylonian, is King Hammurabi. This was a time of warring city-states. Every city was always trying to kill everybody in the next city and take their trade or their fields, or, you know, it's the usual story of humanity. What King Hammurabi did was he managed to get many of the cities to follow him. Could I have the next one, please? And he, in fact, created a vast empire, stretched right up into Syria, up into what is now Iran. That is the old Babylonian Empire. Like all empires, it didn't last, and under his successor, who was a man called Samsu-Iluna, most of it was lost, particularly the cities in the south around Ur. I'm going to point, sorry, up, back, around here. A lot of this was lost to the empire, and Samsu-Iluna was very angry. There was a rebellion which made him very angry, so he went to the south and he destroyed the cities and drove the people away. Does this sound familiar at all? Anything? Yes. Yes, nothing much changes. So it was thought that around the time of 1500, there was nothing much happening there. The place was maybe empty. No farming, nothing. But what we have found gives us a very different picture. Can I have the next one? We went to choose a site. And we chose a site, we could have chosen one of the big ones. Ur, Girsu, Lhasa, Eridu, Waka. These big ones, I'm sure the Iraqis would have agreed to let us work there. But we didn't want to do that, partly because a big city takes a lot of money, a lot of money to do anything useful on, and partly because we already know quite a lot about the big cities. We thought it was a good idea to go to a new place, one where nobody had been working before. In Dhikar province alone, there are 1,200 known archaeological sites. That's 1,200. So anytime anybody tells you all your heritage has been destroyed, just point to the other 1,100,000, however many it is, just in one province that have not been destroyed. So we thought we'd choose one of those. I don't know if any of you like aerial photography. When I speak to archaeologists, this is the point where they start listening. And when I speak to non-archaeologists, this is the point where they start looking at their phones. This is a satellite photograph. Can you get rid of that? Yeah. We'll deal with him afterwards, yeah? This is a satellite photograph showing the site which we're working on. It's called Tel Khaybar. We don't know what its old name was in ancient times, sorry, so it goes on being Khaybar. It's about 5 hectares altogether, and you can you see a shadow in the middle of a big rectangular building? Right. And you can see that the building is in 2 parts, a bigger part to the northeast and a smaller part to the southwest. And all the way around the edge there is some strange things happening around the outside walls. Well, we wanted to find out what this was. Next one, please. I won't take you through. Okay, there are 2 ways to do this, apart from satellite imaging. You can excavate, which we're doing, but you can also look first at the surface. And this is us looking at the surface. It's a very simple technique, where you just scrape away that much of the crust, and you can see underneath, you hope, the plans of the walls of the building. Archaeologists like building plans. We like objects too, but we're not looking for objects, we're looking for information. Archaeology is not about collecting pretty things, it's about information. Of course, much information comes from objects, but archaeology is about information. And you get a lot of information from a building. You get almost no information from an object that has been taken by thieves and sold to, even to a museum, really. You can guess what it might be, but you don't have real information. What's important, what really gives you proper information about ancient society, is objects found in the buildings where they were left, when the buildings were abandoned, and all buildings are abandoned one day. Next one, please. We also, of course, do some excavation under the ground. We don't work like Leonard Woolley. We do collaborate as fully as we can with our Iraqi partners. And I want to be completely open with you about this. It's not that easy. It's not easy for them and it's not easy for us. We have different ideas, different education, different language, but we do actually manage. We all work together, as you can see. Sometimes the local Iraqis are quite surprised that Dr. Shepperson, for instance, gets down on her hands and knees in the dirt, but of course she does. And we also have quite a lot of fun. That's not me in the middle this time. This is the outgoing head of antiquities for Dhikar province. Her name is Ahlam. And she said, please don't photograph me next to Robert or Stuart, because it looks like a moustache. So we found it's the Arabic 50. So we found you can always find a solution in Iraq. Iraqis can always find a quick solution, even a temporary one. So there we have one. Next one, please. I'm going to get a little bit technical. I want to tell you about the building we found, because it's an amazing building. It was, as you saw, I'm sorry, I've swung it round. I'll show you a proper plan before I've finished, I promise. Or will I? Did I cut that one out? Never mind. This is what the building looks like. The empty space there, that's not empty space, it's just the bit we haven't yet managed to do. But we find it's in 2 parts. Whatever they were doing in there, they found it too small very quickly, and they built a much bigger piece on. All around the side are towers. There's only one way in, over there. Thank you, yes, over there. And you have to walk all the way through the north bit, which is now at the bottom, and there's only one entrance there. Thank you, do you want to come and work with us?
I'm artistic, don't worry.
That's sound.
Can you use the mouse to indicate?
Oh, it's okay. The walls are actually more than 3 meters thick, these big thick walls, the exterior walls. In that end, where my architect friend is kindly indicating, that is the administrative quarter. In the other part, we're not sure yet. We thought we might have a range of storerooms. The one part we have looked at, because you see regular rooms all together like magazines, mustauda. This led a colleague who I won't name to write an article in the local Nasiriyah press saying we had found the world's first shopping mall. I think he'd seen store, looked it up in an American dictionary, got shop, and moved on to mall. It's not a shopping mall. We don't know what it is exactly, but we know it's not a shopping mall. But it is a most impressive building. And what is most impressive, it is of a time 1500 BC. What did I say about that time? Nobody was there. It was abandoned. Seems not. Seems somebody built a big public building, defended it, and was doing a lot of administration. Could I have the next one, please? One of the most wonderful things we found in that little office block part was written records. I think if you're Iraqi, you'll know what this is. It's a cuneiform tablet. It's about that big. It's made of clay, and it's impressed with cuneiform writing in the Akkadian language, yeah? Anybody know Akkadian? No, don't worry, I don't either. But you don't need to know Akkadian to see that that is a list. You can see that that is a list, yeah? It's a list of big quantities of grain, of wheat, barley, and also of flour. And these were the most important staple commodities of that time. They were almost a kind of currency. These are lists of big quantities being brought in by certain people and being given to other people. In fact, a lot of it is being sent to the palace. So I think we're not without a big administration here. I think the south of Iraq at this time is doing what Iraqis always do when there's no central authority that is useful. They're doing things by themselves. They don't come out of the ground looking like this. We found nearly 200 by now. They're very difficult to excavate, and we have an expert from London reading them for us. They come out looking like that, and it's only the genius of our Italian conservator that eventually makes them look like the one on the other side. Next one, please. That's a video. I don't know if you can run it. Can you try and run it?
Okay.
If you come down, yes, you should be able to click here.
Sorry.
This is just to give you some idea just how terribly difficult it is to get these things out of the ground. You can hear their hearts beating because they're sure it's going to break. These two have got nearly 200 of these out of the ground. We would like to help get our Iraqi colleagues to do this for us. And again, I'd be completely straight with you, this has not been a success.
Heroic.
No, we didn't lift it much side.
Stop now, please. Not you, her. Yes, thank you. She did stop there because it was about to break. Our Iraqi, the junior archaeologists, the local people who help us with, not with the recording, but with the trowels, they're very enthusiastic. And I have yet to persuade them to leave something where it is to photograph. It's Doctora, Thank you, put it back. Next one, please. But we're working on this. I'm partly joking. They are incredibly good at other things. Okay, so they're not all lists. Lists are important, but they're quite boring. We also have other things. We have a court case mentioning some men who we're not quite sure what they did. There's another letter to the governor saying that the court, he had asked for the court case to be decided in a certain way, and the judge had done it differently, and he was very annoyed. So corruption is not a new thing either in Iraq. We have mentions of the palace. We also have school texts. We have practice pieces. There were children learning to write in that building. We actually have small pieces where they're just writing the same words over and over, or writing out long lists of different things. What else do we find? I have to move on, yes. What else do we find? This building was mainly for officers, but people also lived there. And sometimes we find these things. They're about this big, about 12 centimetres. They're made of clay, and they are made out of a mould. They're not great art. They're not very sophisticated, but they are very typical Babylonian. This shows a man wearing a long cloak. He's walking like this, and he's put his hand like this. That's a kind of shorthand way of bowing and putting your head on the floor. It was the sort of shortcut way of doing that when you walked into a temple, to show you were bowing to the gods. And the next one, please. And this is a lady who isn't wearing a long cloak. In fact, she isn't wearing anything at all. Again, a very typical Babylonian piece. I like her. I like her attitude. Can I have the next one, please? You don't very often look at an old Babylonian right in the face. And okay, so it's very simple. It's not very fine art. But she's still got a wonderful smile, don't you think? Nothing is going to get her down. And the next one, please. But it's not the art, really, that tells us so much about the people. Myself, I like the everyday things. These are pieces of pottery, just broken pieces of pottery with a hole through, and they've been used to weight a fishing net. The net, of course, has long since completely disappeared, but we just find the weights, so we know that a net was there. These people lived in the marshes. It was a marshy environment back then, so it's no surprise to find them fishing, but it's nice when you get it like this. And the next. Pottery we find so much pottery. There was so much clay in southern Iraq that the potters were very prolific. All different kinds of pots. Those are the little one there, the little cup is that big. We find more cups than anything else. I think a lot of drinking went on in this place. A lot of administrators and a lot of soldiers. I think you can say there was probably a lot of drinking. Next one, please. And again, everyday things. On the left, bone needles. So they've been worn completely to a shine for being used so much. You can really feel somebody's hand there. On the right, anybody know what those are? Any archaeologists?
Archaeology.
Well, good guess, almost. They're actually part of a sickle. Minjal? Minjal, yeah. They were put in a row in a clay piece to cut. They're made of flint, made sharp like that. On the left at the bottom we have a mirror, so we did have some women around, we think, or we know. And on the right we have spears and weapons, so we have men around as well. Next one, please. I've only talked very briefly about the building. There is a lot to say about that building, but that's probably enough. You can look up the reports on our website. We do find other things. We find graves. That's a child's grave, I'm sorry to say, just a very small child, newborn, buried in a pot. Very common, still unfortunately very common in some parts of the world, child death. Commoner than it should be in Iraq still. Next, please. An adult burial. This is what we call a double pot burial. It's typical of this time, 1500 onwards. You take two big open-mouthed pots and you put them sideways with their mouths together and the body inside. This body was all crumpled up in one half. I don't know why. The other half was empty. It was a woman of about 28, 30 years old. She was buried just with one jar, with two nice metal pins, and with a necklace. Next one, please. And that's our heroic conservator. Can you go back? The necklace making somebody smile for the first time in 3,500 years. Fantastic. And the next one, please. I'll touch briefly on some of the methods we use. We didn't go back after 30 years to go back to the 1980s, and certainly not to the 1920s. We do use the most sophisticated new techniques that are available, including gradiometry. This is a magnetometer that will give us patterns under the earth. It's also very useful for keeping our security guards happy because they get very, very bored because we're not in much danger and there's very little for them to do. But they can be useful with the string there. Next one, please. An important part of archaeology is the photographic record, and that has changed so much since the 1980s. Since I was last there using film, trying to take the film home without it going through the customs x-rays, trying to avoid the heat for the film, wondering if I had enough film. Now it's all digital, no such problem. There's still the problem of getting a height because, as you know, if you come from southern Iraq, the first hill is probably the Jebel Hamreen. We started by using a 9-meter pole. We found a better way later. We have a small drone, which after some trials we succeeded in bringing through customs. So we have a small drone which takes the photographs for us, which is much better. Next, please. We also record entirely digitally. Our joke is no paper is allowed on the excavation. It's almost true. We have paper for shopping lists. But everything, even small features like that, are drawn straight onto a tough pad and straight into PenMap. Then they can be put into GIS and it can all be digitally available, and the objects and the positions and everything else can all be digitally recorded. I can't tell you what a huge difference that makes to the information we can give you. It wasn't easy for the archaeologists to start with because it wasn't what they were used to. They kept saying, it's quicker on paper. I'm good with paper. I know paper. Give me paper. And we said, no. And they would get angry with this thing and say, I'm going to throw it on the floor and stamp on it. I'd say, okay. These things, the tough pad, it doesn't care about the rain. It doesn't care about the dust or the cold or the heat. And it doesn't care if you throw it on the floor or stand on it. And it doesn't mind if they swear at it, which they do a lot, I'm sorry to say. But this is definitely the future. This is the way recording should be. Next one, please. We also try to recover as much about the economic conditions of the old Babylonians as we can. We can find certain things out from writing, certain things out from their objects or their buildings, certain things we find out, for instance, for animal bones. This is a preliminary analysis of the kinds of animals that these people were using, keeping them or catching them or hunting or fishing or so on. Next one, please. This is done by a very sophisticated technique called flotation, which involves putting things through water in a very messy kind of way, but the results are good. Next one, please. Can you make the video run? At the end. It means that after 3 months of working very hard in very dirty conditions, you get to clean out the tanks. And the next one, please. We also we do feel that we're not just there to be archaeologists, or even just to help archaeologists. We're in the south of Iraq to be as useful as we can in every way. This involves sometimes, we had an exhibition in the Iraq Museum opened by the minister of the time at the top there, which was nice. We got to go to, I got taken on a protest march, which I wasn't very sure about at the time, but hey, why not? At the bottom there, at the bottom on the right, we welcome as many people as we can to the site. This is a group of local school teachers. We hope in time they will bring the children. We hope in time they will bring students also. We want everybody to know about this as much as possible. We don't get to travel as much as we want to because we have to take some security with us, and security are always busy, and we have to wait our turn. But we do get to travel a little bit. We even got to Kerbala, that's Imam Abbas, I think, the shrine that we're in, which is wonderful because the first time I was in Iraq, I would never have dared even go near the shrine. This time we were actually invited in, and that was lovely. And the next one, please. I think I've got about 5 more minutes, is that right?
We still have time.
I have time?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll slow up then. This is another video, the last video. I just thought I'd show you Tel Khaybar because we're so pleased with our new drone. Here we are coming in over from the north. You can see there's still some marsh. It's not a marshy area today, but it was in the past. There's a modern road on this side and a modern canal. But you can see the old canal would have looped round to the bottom of the picture and round the building, probably. Here we are flying in. We're coming over the north, the big part of the building, which we've just opened up. You can see the little row of storerooms has been filled in on the left there. And now we don't have to go past the guards, we're going to be allowed straight in. People working on scraping for the plan on the right. And to the top of the picture there are people working in the administrative block. There again. You can see the place where we found most of the tablets. We're just coming to now where the pointer is, that's right. This is where the scribes used to sit and make all those tablets and sit and write them. Swinging round now to look into the courtyard, where they probably also sat when the weather was right to do their writing. And this we just opened this year. We opened the kitchen area, which doesn't have tablets or statues, but it is fantastically interesting. It has lots of bones and lots of nice messy things. So that's Tel Khaybar. We'll be back there in the spring, inshallah, to, we hope, complete our plan of the building. If I still have a couple of minutes, can we fast forward another 1,000 years and one more slide? Thank you. Just this year, we found ourselves also asked to do some work in Basra province. When I said I'd been everywhere in Iraq, Basra was the one place I never went to because there's not much archaeology there, or in my shame that was what I believed. I've learnt different now. We were asked to look at a site called Spasinu. It's got a little yellow pin there. It's about an hour and a half north of Basra on a very bad road. There we go. Next one, please. If you're interested in all the details, you can read this. Karax has a very complicated history. The modern name is Tel Khayaba, which is so confusingly close to Tel Khayba that we're calling this one by its old name, its old Greek name, Karax Spasinu. It was founded by Alexander the Great on his way back from India, on his way to Babylon, where of course he died. The Gulf, as you know, used to be further north, and this place had open access to the sea, or easy access to the sea. And he said, make me a city there for my soldiers who are too tired or too sick now to fight or too old, so that they can be there and they can trade and become rich. It has, as I say, a long history. After Alexander, it was flooded, it was refounded, it was flooded again, it was refounded again. But it became capital of its own kingdom, the kingdom of Karasini. Again, at a time when central control was a little weak. Iraqis did, as I say, what they do best. They took control themselves and just managed to get on with things themselves. And, could I have the next one, please? It became a great trading port. It was more or less lost, so to speak, until we missed one. Perhaps? No? Okay, go back then, please. Sorry. Nobody really knew where this place was. People who study classical culture have been speaking about Karax Spasinu, and many articles you read finish with, and if we could only know what happened at Karax Spasinu, all our problems are over. No, well, they won't be over. But it is a very important place which is known, but which we don't know anything about. It was trading with Palmyra, it was trading with Petra, it was trading with India. It must have had relations also with Hatra because it's the same time. So a very special place, and nothing really much known about it. So we moved ourselves to Basra, briefly, where we lived in a couple of porter cabins, which were on the main road. And after 3 days, the head of antiquities there, Dr. Kahtan al-Abid, said, security are giving me problems. They say I must have 15 policemen, because there's 6 of you. I don't have so many policemen. So maybe we put the cabins on the roof, it's safer. So we got a crane, they picked them up, and they put them on the roof above the Antiquities police station there. Next slide, please. So that's where we lived for the next month. I must say I've lived in cleaner places, but I've lived in worse places also. That's the way up, the only way up and the only way down. And it was a hard month, but it was certainly worth it. And we made some new friends, the Antiquities police, who are of Basra, who are a fantastic bunch of people, very versatile. One of them is a particularly good cook, that one there. He made us, but that's Dr. Kahtan in the middle there in the stripes, attempting to, I think, set off some fireworks. It was somebody's birthday. And Abu Sajjad there is a policeman, but when he's not wearing his uniform, he was our cook. And that's a nice birthday cake. So again, a very good relationship. Not always easy for both sides. They'd never seen anything like us. Next one, please. Oh, sorry, they should have come before. I say nobody knew anything about the site. Englishman or American, I'm not sure, Professor Hantzman, found this place in about, I think, 1965. He put it into his thesis. He identified it, he suggested it was Karax Spasinu. It's also called Spasinu Karax. But since then, of course, we've had the Iraq-Iran war. It's only 14 kilometers from the border, and nobody, apart from a few people with sheep, have been back there to look at it much. And I confess, when Dr. Kahtan took us there, he said, do you know what this place is? We didn't. We had to go away and look it up. But there it is Karax. Next one, please. Had some problems that way. Next one, please. It's had a lot of other problems. Tanks were parked there during the Iraq-Iran war. This is, I guess, before most of you were born, but I remember it very clearly, and I'm sure your relations will have very unhappy memories of the Iraq-Iran war. Tanks were placed there, you can see where they put them. They made holes in the walls. Next one, please. Somebody has been doing some illegal excavation there. That's one of the towers. You shouldn't be able to see it. They've tried to uncover it. And the next one, please. But in doing these things, the various disturbances also show us carved stones. So we know somewhere there must be really huge buildings with really monumental, fine architecture. Next one, please. So we flew our drone to make a photogrammetric record of the site. It's our little drone. We love our drone. You can program it to fly up and down on a fixed grid, and when it runs out of battery, it comes back. It's a bit like a dog. It's like, more battery, please, more battery. And next one, please. We've made this preliminary 3D image of the site. So you can see the ramparts much more clearly, I think, in this. You can also see, I'm sorry to say, all the places the tanks have been. And you can see some of the agriculture and some of the archaeological features. So, objective 1, we discovered the size of the site, approximately. And God help us, it's more than 5 hectares. So it's going to be a lot of work to find out more about it. But fantastic, Alexander City, it's still there. The next thing to find out was, did the floods or the looters take everything? Or erosion take everything? Or is something still there? Have the next one, please. So we did a magnetometer survey. We got a magnetometer team from the University of Munich with a cesium magnetometer. They must be the most energetic people in the world. I think they did 8 hectares in 9 days, or was it 9 hectares in 8 days? I forget. Anyway, an amazing feat. All with a very small instrument, which they took to pieces. They worked all over the world in places where the customs are not very happy about radiometers coming through. So you can dismantle it into 1 or 2 pieces, just looks like a bundle of sticks. No trouble at all. But in fact, we don't have too much problem so far with our Iraqi friends in the customs. People are very cooperative. We explain what we need these things for, and they believe us. And believe me, in the 1980s, they would not have believed us. We would have to be spies. But this is all working out for us. So we tried just in the area where the spots are, nearest the river. Can I have the next one, please? And yes! I think Dr. Jaffa will know what that is. Yes, thank you. An enormous building, a huge building. Next one, please. In fact, it's full of huge buildings. You can actually see the street grid and the main road going from top to bottom on the right-hand side there. This is what's known as a Hippodamian grid. It's what Greek-style cities were built on. It's the biggest grid. We've looked up other cities of this time, and it's the biggest grid there is, as far as we know. And these big mansions were built on top, possibly a little later. You can also see at the bottom that where the river has flooded, and it's affected the buildings, so we can see the flood events. So essentially, we would like to go back, if we possibly can, to Carax and try to find out a great deal more about it. Next one, please. We did some trial trenches just to test if there was any depth to the deposit. This is across one of the big buildings. And the next one, please. And yes, there was plenty left. These are storage jars. They stand about this big. They're actually planted upside down, would you believe? And the bases have been cut off. What they were doing there, I wish I could tell you, but I really don't understand. They were just all in a line, put together like this by a ditch. Absolutely amazing. So the answer to our question, is anything left? Yes, there is plenty left. Thank you to the tanks and all the looters. There's still plenty left. Next one, please. Conditions in our little cabins were quite difficult. We didn't have the field laboratory. We have it all built now. We did find some coins, quite a lot of coins, mostly very badly corroded. And we were rather stuck for how to read them without a conservator. We tried, an Iraqi friend took us to a hospital and we tried to x-ray them, but it showed nothing. Eventually the cook said, "ليش ما تأخذين ليموندوزي?" Really, this is possibly not best practice. I'm sharing this with you, but please don't tell any professors. These are from the surface and they were totally corroded anyway, so we weren't actually destroying anything that wasn't already destroyed. So we experimented with limonduzi, citric acid in various percentages, some sodium chloride, salt from the table, and some mineral water, which we did have. And we managed to find faces on 2 of them. I don't know if you can make out the faces. That one we think is a local king from the Kingdom of Carasini. I'm not quite sure which one. And the one on the left we think is a little earlier. Still working on it. And we're hoping to put together a really big project which will include experts in this period, experts in coins, all the experts we need, because Iraq deserves all the best experts. And where we don't know, we like to bring somebody else. So that's Carax for the moment, and Tel Khaybar. Basra, I started with a good news story, so I'll finish with a good news story. The Basra Museum is going to open very soon, in the end of September. It's in one of Saddam's old palaces, which I think is brilliant. I like that almost as much as picnicking on his road. The idea that one of his palaces is a museum. It'll be opening very soon. It'll be very small to start with, because there's not much money, as I don't need to remind you, but it will be opening. Next one, please. So that just remains for me to say thank you to all of these people. And the next one, please. I said I'd tell you where you come in. You all come in somewhere. Iraq's heritage isn't in my hands, or the hands of experts. It's in your hands. And as long as you don't give up on it, it'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want questions? Oh, please, what can I tell you?
I would like to say thank you very much indeed for all the work you have done. And also I've met Professor Roger Matthews. His PhD is, I think thesis or his work with Abu Salabih, this small I would like to invite you, Professor Roger, to have an international team to not just to explore what's going there, but we need to how to educate our generations, how to work with these assets, underground assets, how to let people, how to preserve them, how to understand the nature or the civilizations over there. And I would be very much happy if you others from this lovely country, United Kingdom, to work hand by hand with Iraqi universities, with the archaeologists there, to achieve what we need to do, what we need to explore in our schools, in our nursery or whatever it is, to highlight the importance of these things. They are not just for Iraqis, they are for international, for the world actually. So I would be very much happy if we work together as Iraqi Cultural Attaché with your size, Reading Universities, Professor Matthews, and I think at the moment there is a committee, it's called RASHID. You have heard about it? RASHID. Professor Roger Matthews, he is on this committee. I think it's an international one between Germans, between UK, between some places in the world. We also work in University of Kufa, works very close to German Institute of Archaeology. So I think if we can make an international effort to work together and to visit or to may have a site from the Iraqi, from any officials in Iraq to say this, work on that one, and to explore it in a proper way, to find out the proper way. So this is my mission, and I hope we can work with you together in this regard.
Thank you, I'd be honoured. We'd be delighted to do what we can. Because as you say, it's too important just to keep in Iraq.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else want to know anything? Oh, Dr. Jaffa does.
Thank you again for your coming and accepting our invitation for you. As far as I know, we have one British team working in southern of Iraq. So what can the Iraqi Cultural Attaché do more to make them 2, 3, 4 British team working in the south? Is it a matter of money, matter of agreement between Iraq side and British side? I'm not sure.
No, the agreements are not a problem. I won't say that negotiations always go as quickly as we would like, but we've always had really not much problem negotiating with our Iraqi colleagues, just over timing sometimes. But no, I think money is the biggest problem, yes. All the other problems, money would make them go away. We do have some trouble persuading our colleagues that it's actually safe. The British Museum, for instance, they won't come to southern Iraq. We had a student working with the British Museum who was supposed to come with us last year, and at the last minute she cancelled. She said they won't let me go. You can say for as long as you like it's safe, or it's as safe as driving around Newcastle or cycling, but we need to demonstrate that. Just keep telling them. I think funding is our worst problem. I mean, archaeology is not expensive, but money is short, and it's not seen as a priority by people. We see how important it is. You do. But anything I can do to persuade people, just tell me. We do. I have been persuading German colleagues, also British, but we had some visitors last year who came, and they were very surprised at what they saw, and I think they will put together a mission, so you'll have another German mission perhaps.
I think there's a fund of 30 million from the British Museum. 3 million should go to somewhere for Middle East, or especially maybe for Iraq.
It's 30 million altogether for
Yes.
all of the Middle East.
Yeah.
The British Museum have already taken 3.
Yeah.
They're going to be doing training for members of the State Board for Antiquities and Heritage. We also hope that they will help us. We want to actually work in Iraq. We want to actually do work on the ground. A lot of people I know will be applying for looking at satellite images or looking after old archives, and these are all important, of course, but we are aiming to get them to give us some money to actually continue work in Iraq, because I think that is the only way you can do some things. You have to be there. Some things you just can't achieve by talking or looking. I've just realised I haven't really been using this. Can you hear me? Too late.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Now we are in the end of our Iraqi Heritage event, and we would like to thank you all. And the next, we go into Herschel building, just opposite this building, for lunch and for Iraqi achievements. Thank you so much for